Srila Prabhupada, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane, Namaste Saraswatam Deve, Kauravani Vacharane, Nirvishesha, Shunyavadi, Paskatyade Siddharane. Today I'm going to read from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 9, I'm sorry, Most Confidential Knowledge, text number 13. Mahatmas tumam parta daivin prakritim ashitya vajatnananya manaso gyatpabhutidem aviyam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Purport. In this verse, the description of the Mahatma is clearly given. The first sign of the Mahatma is that he is already situated in the divine nature. He's not under the control of material nature. And how this is affected? This is explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, at once becomes freed from the control of material nature. That is the qualification. One can become free from the control of material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the preliminary formula. Being marginal potency, as soon as the living entity is freed from the control of material nature, he is put under the guidance of the spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Daivi Prakriti, divine nature. So when one is promoted in that way, by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of a great soul, Mahatma. The Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside of Krishna, because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma or great soul develops through association with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form of a demigod or of a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna and Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in unswerving service of the Lord and Krishna consciousness. So the verse again, Mahatmanas tumam parta daivim prakritim ashitya vajnananya manaso gyatpabhutidem avyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Om Agyanativarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksur Undalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Srila Prabhupada many times stated that the Bhagavad Gita is our basic preaching book. As he states in the beginning of the introduction, the Bhagavad Gita is also known as the Gita Upanishad and is the essence of all the Vedic literature. Therefore, we'll find other literatures, including Nectar of Devotion or Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. All these other literatures are actually based on Bhagavad Gita. In one of the original records that Srila Prabhupada put out called the Happening Album, Prabhupada stated that the Krishna consciousness movement is authorized because this is the most consistent, exacting, and voluminous philosophy on the science of Godhead. Therefore, these verses that we're reading can also be found in other parts of our scriptures, which elaborate upon them more. Elaborate upon them. Now, here, this is a very important verse because everyone is always, well, not everyone, sometimes devotees question who is actually qualified to be a guru, who is actually a devotee. And here Krishna answers that devotees are the great souls who are under the protection of the divine nature. And they're fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. And then Krishna explains what the preliminary qualifications are to be a devotee, to be called a devotee, and what are the intermediate qualifications, and what are the topmost qualifications of a devotee. Where he says, Satatam kirtiyantomam yatantas chadradavrataha namasyantas shamam bhaktya ityukta upasate. So that's the next verse. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. This might remind us of another book that Prabhupada translated called The Nectar of Devotion Instruction. And this is text number 5. Krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshasi chat pranitibis chabhajantam isham shushushaya bhajna vigyam ananya anya indati sunyam hridayam ipsita sangalabdhya. One should mentally honor the devotee who chants the holy name of Lord Krishna. One should offer humble obeisances to the devotee who has undergone spiritual initiation and is engaged in worshiping the deity. And one should associate with and faithfully serve that pure devotee who is advanced in devotional service, undeviated devotional service, and whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity to criticize others. Srila Rupa Goswami tells us how to properly reciprocate with what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita in the 14th verse, so that we don't offend devotees, instead we serve them appropriately. The beginning devotee, he's engaged in hearing about Krishna. Sadatam kirtiyantomam. And on the basis of hearing, he may talk favorably about Krishna. Or as Krishna says, manmana bhava madbhakto. First, we have to hear about Krishna, and then absorb our mind to one degree or another. That's why it's good that when we're chanting Hare Krishna, our rounds, we don't have counter this clicker. And when we're driving, we're not clicking away, chanting our rounds at least. Because we have to absorb our mind in Krishna, and if we're driving, it's very difficult to absorb the mind in Krishna, at least not if we're physically driving the car. Now, we absorb our mind in Krishna, is every likelihood we won't pay attention to the road. And if we don't pay attention to the road, then we put everyone, including ourselves, in danger. So we have to be careful that if we use a clicker, we're not trying to pay too much attention to the chanting in such a way that we put others, including ourselves, in danger when we're driving. In other words, the chanting should be done in such a way is that we can actually do it with some concentration. Concentration means concentrating the mind. Manmana bhava mad bhakto. And by concentrating the mind, then the result is that we should think about Krishna. And the nature of Krishna is full of pleasure. There's a little pamphlet Prabhupada put out called Krishna, the Reservoir of Pleasure, that he's the embodiment of unlimited bliss, love, affection, however we might want to call it. Everyone is hungry for love and affection and bliss. And the reservoir of that comes from Krishna and his devotees, who are amplified through their hearts in loving relationships with Krishna, the knowledge, the bliss, and the affection that Krishna has. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, we keep on hearing that Krishna is the source of everything. And it's repeated again and again. So Prabhupada said repetition of something is necessary for us to understand it thoroughly. Therefore, in the 5th chapter, Krishna mentions again that Gyanena tu tadaganam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham adityavad gyanam prakashiti tatparam. One, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, just like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andhikar. Yahun Krishna Taihun Nahi Maya Adhikar. Wherever there is Krishna, who's like the sun, then the shadow of Maya can't be there. Krishna Surya Sama. Krishna is like the sun, and Maya is like darkness. Wherever Krishna is, there can't be darkness. Maya can't exist. Therefore, the more Krishna conscious we are, the less we're in Maya. The Krishna consciousness is a consciousness of Krishna, which we're trying to develop. And that consciousness comes from hearing. Therefore, after Krishna says, Gyanena tu tad agyanam yesham nashitam atmanaha, then he said, Tad buddhayas tad atmanas, tad nishtas tad parayanaha, gachantya puna avritim, gyana nirduta kalmashaha. One's intelligence, one's mind, one's faith. What's that? Did someone say something? Okay. That wasn't you, Lavangalata Devidasi, was it? Lavangalata?
Maharaj, I'm fine. Some of the devotees turned on their microphone. I'm so sorry. They were turned off already. My obeisances, apologies. Hare Krishna.
No problem. Okay. So Krishna says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhu. Oh, I was saying, Tad Buddhayas, Tad Atmanas, Tad Nishtas, Tad Parayanaha, Gajatnya Puna Abritim, Gyanani Duta Kamasha. So if you need some reference, that's Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, text number 17. There Krishna says, Buddha, now we get intelligence, spiritual intelligence, or even material intelligence by hearing. Therefore, according to what we're hearing, we're going to develop some intelligence. And it's really necessary for us to hear Krishna's message in Bhagavad Gita so we can develop spiritual intelligence. Namely about, I'm a spiritual soul, everyone's an eternal spiritual soul, Krishna is an eternal spiritual soul. Paramatma within our heart, he's also a spiritual soul. That ultimately reality is understand the spiritual nature of the self and the Supreme Self. All other knowledge, if it's helpful to understand that, is welcomed. Otherwise, it may be just a waste of time. That depends upon how we utilize other knowledge, whether it's utilized in Krishna service or utilized for other things, like sense gratification. Therefore, hearing is essential. Without hearing about Krishna, we're going to hear about so many things. If the glass is only half full with milk, then there's the possibility of other things like ink entering into the glass. But if the glass is completely full, then there's no way that anything else will get into it. Therefore, the more we hear about Krishna in a way that allows us to think about Krishna, then the more our consciousness becomes filled with Krishna, then the more we become interested in serving Krishna. Because actually our activities, although they appear that they're what we call material energy, but material energy is just different transformations of sound. As it says in the Bible, then the beginning was the Word. So the beginning of everything is sound. The universe was created from Omkar. And therefore, although it appears to us that we're doing something with this body, but what we're doing is actually a manifestation of our mind and intelligence, which is based upon whatever we're hearing is feeding our intelligence and entering into our mind. And from our mind, we develop desires, and Krishna fulfills those desires according to what we deserve through his energy. Therefore, we have a part to play in our activities, but that part is primarily based upon is our desire, which is fulfilled by Krishna through his energy, and our desires depend upon our intelligence. And our intelligence depends upon what we're hearing. Therefore, hearing is the most essential part of Krishna consciousness. It's not the only part, but it's the foundational part to develop our spiritual intelligence. Then, if the mind is thinking about Krishna and we're deriving pleasure from that, satisfaction or pleasure, machita machkata prana bodhi antash parashparam katayantasram nityam tu shanti charamanticha. So the devotees who are experienced, their business is to tell others or each other, parashparam, bodhyantash parashparam, about what their experience is. Just like Narada Muni, he was talking to Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva accepted Narada Muni as his spiritual master, and Narada Muni just didn't tell him, think about Krishna. No, he explained to him his own experience of how he had become a devotee in order to give Vyasadeva some guidance, how he also could become a devotee of Krishna, a pure devotee. And part of that was that Narada Muni associated with the sages during the rainy season, Chaturmasya. And the devotees, the Mahabhagavats, devotees, during the rainy season especially, they spent most of the time hearing and chanting about Krishna. And from the practical point of view, Narada Muni's mother was also cooking for them. And she made prasadam for them. And when Narada Muni experienced the remnants of the great sages, the Mahabhagavats, then his heart became purified. And he developed an attraction for hearing about Krishna from the sages. Of course, he was also in Kali Yuga. What part of Kali Yuga, I don't know. Some Kali Yuga. And therefore, after his mother was bitten by a snake, he was free to go traveling, even as a young boy, all over the world. And one day, after some adventures traveling in the world, he sat down and tried to practice the meditation that the sages had given him. Now, this was not our Kali Yuga. There's many Kali Yugas. And in the other Kali Yugas, chanting is sometimes recommended, but it's not the same as in our Yuga, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared and gave the chanting not just for liberation, but for developing Krishna Prema. In any case, the instructions that the sages gave Narada Muni is that he should sit in meditation, focus his mind upon Krishna, which he did in a secluded place, in the proper atmosphere, and then Krishna appeared within his heart in some form. And Narada Muni felt transcendental ecstasy, and every part of his body became enlivened. And then Krishna disappeared. Now, in every case in the Srimad Bhagavatam, whether it be Narada Muni, because Narada Muni also heard from the sages, Prahlad Maharaj heard from Narada Muni, Dhruva Maharaj heard from Narada Muni. So this is called parampara. We have to hear from a devotee, an actual devotee of Krishna, and here it explains that there are different kinds of devotees. The beginning devotee is that one who's chanting Hare Krishna. He's heard from the devotees, from real devotees, and he's practicing the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. He may not be in full ecstasy, but he's trying to chant the holy name. He's considered a neophyte. And although he may have so many deficiencies and faults, still he should at least be mentally honored. Prabhupada gives the example, if one is in the shower and he's taking a bath, he's becoming cleansed, what is the value of pointing out how he has so much dirt on his body? What can he do about it? He's already doing something about it by putting himself in the shower. So one who is actually chanting Hare Krishna should at least be respected within the mind. Now, there are different persons who are just only chanting Hare Krishna. And therefore, we don't treat everyone equally. We have to understand the details also. For instance, the Sahajis, as Prabhupada points out in the purport, the Nectar of Instruction, they also chant Hare Krishna. But we don't intimately associate with them, although we respect them within the mind, because if we intimately associate with them, either we'll wind up criticizing them or wind up becoming just like them. When Sanatana Goswami was told by Lord Chaitanya that he could go to to Vrindavan and visit the holy places there. But actually it was Jagannatha Pandit. Jagannath Pandit was actually in the mood of Satyabhama. And therefore he was a little fiery sometimes with Lord Chaitanya. And he was in the mood of trying to take care of Lord Chaitanya physically, make him comfortable. But Lord Chaitanya was a sannyasi, a strict sannyasi, trying to show the example of renunciation, and did not always accept everything that was offered to him by Jagannatha Pandit. So there were instances where Jagannatha Pandit tried to give him nice bed to lie down on, he made some oil, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would actually enjoy a nice massage. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not accept this. In any case, Jagannatha Pandit became somewhat disturbed, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, "My dear Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, maybe I could go to Vrindavan." So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understood that Jagannatha Pandit is in the mood of mana. He's angry at me, and he wants to show it by going to Vrindavan. So he didn't allow Jagannatha Pandit to go to Vrindavan. But Jagannatha Pandit was adamant about going to Vrindavan, so he had Ramananda Roy and Sri Damodar petition Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to allow Jagannatha Pandit to go to Vrindavan. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu cautioned, finally, Lord Chaitanya agreed that Jagannatha Pandit could go to Vrindavan. But he cautioned Jagannatha Pandit that when you're in Vrindavan, then you should not associate intimately with the residents there, because they're of a different mentality. They have a different mood than our mood is. Therefore, even 500 years ago, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was cautioning us to not intimately associate with devotees who have a completely different mood than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Or not completely, but a different mood. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced the chanting of the holy name. As Prabhupada said, he was chanting on beads himself a number of rounds. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was introduced things like Harinam, Sankirtan, public worship of Krishna by chanting the holy names, principally that. Also studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. For many of the residents of the holy place of Vrindavan, they're in a different mood, more or less like, we could say spontaneous, but perhaps sometimes irregular nowadays. They have affection for Krishna, and they chant Jai Radhe, but they don't understand the philosophy very well. Many of them don't even understand the importance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But we respect them within our minds because they're devotees, but we don't intimately associate with them sometimes. Now, amongst the Vaishnavas in Vrindavan, some of them were strict, some of them are not so strict. Some of them are actually not really Vaishnavas, they're Mayavadis or impersonalists, and some of them are just Sahajiyas. That we have to discriminate according to knowledge, who we associate with and who we don't associate with intimately. But in any case, we respect them within our mind because they're somehow or another connected with the process of Krishna consciousness. Even those who are following the Vedic culture, some respect should be given to them. In the background of one lecture that Prabhupada was giving, or talk he was giving, we can hear it was a Durga festival. And in India, they have these huge, super huge microphones, speakers. That go on sometimes if you're living in Mayapur for some time. 20 kilometers away, you can hear them blasting something all night long. So in the background, you can hear them blasting. One of the songs they were singing was from Mary Martin's "The Hills Are Alive," and the hills are with music. Anyhow, some of it was devotional too, somewhat devotional, like Durga Ma or whatever they were chanting. So the devotees asked Srila Prabhupada, who is better, these worshippers of Kali or those who are worshiping the Christians and other such religions? Prabhupada said that actually the worshippers of Kali are better. Why? although they're not actually as God conscious in some respects as those who are worshiping God in some other, as Christianity or Mohammedanism, whatever. But their path, Christianity and other religions, do not lead to a full understanding of Krishna consciousness. But because those who are following karma yoga or jnana yoga or even worshiping the demigods are connected with the Vedic culture and Vedic scriptures, it's expected that in the course of time they'll come to Krishna consciousness through their worship. May take a long time, but that is a path towards Krishna consciousness. While others, they don't really have a connection so clearly with Krishna consciousness, and they may take them a longer time before they understand the full implications of what it means to become a devotee of God. All these devotees, partial and sometimes devotees of demigods, we have to respect them to one degree or another, but not intimately associate with them. Now, here it says, humble obeisance to the devotees who has undergone spiritual initiation, diksha, and is engaged in worshiping the deity. Or as Krishna had said in the next verse, that drita vrata, sadatam kirtiyanto mam, itantascha drita vrataha. So that is the determination of initiation. The determination of initiation, when we make that vow of initiation, it is not simply to chant a certain number of rounds a day, which is also very essential. But the vow of initiation is so that we're going to try to develop drita vrata, a determination to serve Krishna without deviation. And serve Krishna, not just Krishna, but evam parampara praptam imam rajarshaya vidu sakaleneha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. As Krishna says, this knowledge of Krishna comes down through the simple succession from the bona fide spiritual master. Or as it says, evam para praptam imam rajarshaya vidu. The knowledge is speaking to a representative of Krishna who's spoken to his disciple, etc. So the knowledge is coming down to us through parampara. And parampara means one who simply repeats the same thing that Krishna said. Because whatever Krishna says is perfect, and therefore there's no need to change anything, add anything, or change it. It's sufficient for God realization, to understand Krishna and our relationship with him, and the ultimate reality of spiritual life, which means the reality of our relationship with everyone and everything. So these are those who have made that vow, that determination, then we have to cooperate with them, endeavoring with great determination and bowing down before me. In other words, those who actually respect Krishna and his representatives, then those are the devotees we're supposed to associate with under the direction of the superior devotees, so that we develop loving relationships and exchanges on that level. The exchanges in the relationship with the superior devotees is generally supposed to be that of awe and reverence and service. But we have to have friendships where we can reveal our minds in confidence and have some time to consider our problems. Now, if we think that my spiritual master, he's all merciful and that he knows everything, and therefore all my problems should be revealing my mind in confidence means to write a small book about my problems and then send it to him for publication. Review, commenting upon, etc., etc. That may be there. That was certainly there at the beginning of our society, where Prabhupada was the only devotee that anyone could approach with their difficulties and problems. But he expected that devotees would develop friendship with each other in such a way that those who had knowledge would actually share it with their friends. They could actually reveal their minds about some difficulties or some aspirations they have, and they'd get an intelligent, Krishna conscious answer back that would guide them, help guide them to more further service to Guru and Krishna. That was called friendship. That someone we could trust. Trust means that they actually guide us towards Krishna consciousness. If someone tells us, my dear friend, my dear devotee, you look like you're stressed out, I have a solution. Let's go and watch a movie at the relaxed a little bit. That is not what's considered to be our revealing our minds in confidence or having a friend which will help us. Friend that will help us, we have to have confidence they're going to help us take care of our problems by increasing our Krishna consciousness, not deviating us into some form of sense gratification. Revealing our mind in confidence doesn't mean I have this on my mind that I hate this devotee, I want to kill them. Thank you, Prabhu, for revealing your mind in confidence. I have to tell you confidentially, please don't tell anyone else. I also hate them. I also want to kill them. Now we can be friends. We have the same enemy. That's not exactly what revealing one's mind in confidence is. We may express some disturbance with a devotee, but we get the proper perspective on how to deal with it in a Krishna conscious way, our problems. That's our friend. One who represents Krishna and gives us good, solid advice so that we develop closer relationships with the other devotees in some practical way. And these great souls then Nitya Yukta Upasate, Namasyantas Shamam Bhaktya, Nitya Yukta Upasate. So these are devotees fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. At least, even if there are many devotees in our society who are absorbed completely in Krishna consciousness, that it's clear that if they became Krishna conscious in our society, it was because of their association with Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, if we want to be assured to judge who's on what level, it has to be in relationship with how much they're chanting the glories of how much they're chanting the glories of Krishna, how much they with determination engage in devotional service, and how much they appreciate and love and develop within others the proper understanding of how to develop loving relationships with other devotees. These devotees, such devotees are the ones that are actually qualified to give us guidance. And under their guidance, we learn how to make friendships with the other devotees, and we develop a desire to help the innocent as part of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission, his service to him. If we see Srila Prabhupada's example, Srila Prabhupada did not, in the beginning of his preaching, tell everyone about Radha and Krishna's pastimes. As a matter of fact, many devotees used to find what Prabhupada was saying was very boring. They liked Prabhupada. They liked the prasadam. They may have even liked kirtan, but they didn't like the philosophy. After all, the one thing we want to protect in this universe, why we came here, is our false ego, which we've carefully developed over many lifetimes. Therefore, Prabhupada's philosophy, he kept on only talking about Krishna. And the devotees didn't find Krishna that interesting. They find parts of what our philosophy, they found part of our lifestyle interesting. They didn't find Krishna very interesting. Therefore, if we look at the early lectures that Prabhupada was giving that was recorded, we find many devotees, they were in the back of the Vyasasan, standing up. That was because they were falling asleep during the lecture. Nowadays, if you fall asleep during the lecture, no one notices because many other devotees are falling asleep. As one devotee once said at the airport when I was there, he was asking, one devotee was distributing a book to a man who had insomnia. And he said, the man who had insomnia, he said, I'd like to buy your book. Unfortunately, I can't read because I haven't fallen asleep for many weeks now. And I can't concentrate on anything. So the devotee told him, he said, don't worry about it. He said, you should buy the book. And you should read the book. And I'm sure it'll cure your insomnia. You'll be able to fall asleep very nicely. He said that in our temple, we have 50 devotees who read this book in a class every day. We hear it. And by the end of the class, practically all of them are asleep. So try it out. So buy the book and try it out and see if it works. So the man bought the book, sat down, tried to read the book, and immediately fell asleep. So it worked. But that's not the perfection of reading the book, as you all know. In any case, they're hearing from a self-realized devotee like Srila Prabhupada is the foundation of developing loving relationships with others, including Krishna, including the fellow devotees, including the innocent, and properly dealing with the non-devotees. And therefore we should keep Prabhupada within in our consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada has his representatives, but the representatives in our society, whatever the level of spiritual advancement, including if they become Mahabhagavats, is to connect us with Parampara. And our immediate Parampara is Srila Prabhupada, as our founder Acharya, as the basis of everyone's spiritual advancement. If someone becomes perfect in Krishna consciousness, it's because they perfectly understood and followed Prabhupada's instructions. And therefore they should also be honored and kept in mind, but we shouldn't forget our disciple succession, because in that way we become connected, as Prabhupada said, through the transcendental electricity of disciple succession, transcendental energy. If we connect the plug into a socket, we expect electricity to flow, not because the socket is there and because we connected the plug to the socket, it's because the plug, because the socket is connected to the powerhouse. And our connection is through parampara, of which Srila Prabhupada, being the founder Acharya, is the foundational connection we have with the rest of the parampara. So for whether now or in 10,000 years from now, Prabhupada will remain within ISKCON at least, the foundational connection to Krishna and to spiritual advancement. Therefore, what we should do and what we should not be done should be done on the basis of Prabhupada's books, especially. Prabhupada said, whatever I had to say, I've said in our books, my books. And to help us understand Prabhupada's books, we have so many help. We have our initiating guru, we have our instructing gurus, we have so many ways. We have Prabhupada's books, so we should study them. We should hear from others who have realizations about Srila Prabhupada's books to help us understand them more clearly, and make our basis of whatever we're doing based upon Prabhupada. And the more we do that, the more Prabhupada becomes pleased. Then even we're remembering, we're seeing everything around us, we're remembering Radha and Krishna and their pastimes in Vrindavan, feeling Prabhupada's pleasure, this is what actually intensifies and brings to life whatever pastime there is that we remember in Krishna's service. Is that fundamental connection with Srila Prabhupada and his representatives that bring to life Krishna consciousness. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Okay. So I think, what's that?
Excuse me. Thakur Haridas Prabhu.
Thakur Haridas? Did you have a question? Oh, I see. I can't see that. You have a question?
Guru Maharaj, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I, yeah, devotees, please accept my blessings. Oh, Lord, Srila Prabhupada. Guru Maharaj, the book distribution is very good for to realize that one is not actually the doer. So why is that?
Well, any activity by which we or Krishna conscious is, as we said, as Krishna had said, that if the more our minds are absorbed in remembering Krishna, beginning with the name, then remembering spontaneously his form, and as our consciousness becomes more absorbed in Krishna, then we remember his associates, their pastimes, their loving exchanges, an experience. Now, book distribution is such that it presents a challenge to us, how to deal with someone. Or as Queen Kunti said, the problems of the material world that we face are due to our interaction with others. So it's an opportunity to actually serve even people we don't know, and serve them by helping them develop their relation with Krishna, in spite of whatever challenges we may face. So that's called, as we said, tad buddhiyas tad atmanas tad nishtas tad parayanaha kachat nipuna aritim jnana niduta kalmashaha. One's intelligence, one's mind, one's faith, one's refuge. So book distribution is a good opportunity to take refuge in Krishna. Because we're hearing about the importance of book distribution, We have to focus our mind, certainly if we want to distribute any books. And we have to have faith that this is actually going to help me and help others. And after some time, we realize the only way I could possibly convince someone to take a book legitimately without cheating them is to have take shelter of Krishna. And the more we take shelter of Krishna, the more he reciprocates with us. The more we become empowered by spiritual energy. And that empowerment of spiritual energy makes us blissful, and it makes others blissful too. It enlightens us, and it enlightens others too. Now, any service, if it's done with full determination, can also give us the same effect. The difference is that other services may not be so challenging, and certainly not directly to take shelter of Krishna. In other services, we may use our material intelligence to solve our problems rather than our spiritual intelligence. Therefore, it's essential, at least as a foundation, for anyone doing any service to sit down morning and evening and hear about Krishna. Worship the deities, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, because that way we can develop the spiritual intelligence, how to take advantage of whatever devotional service that we have, so that we actually develop this continuum from intelligence to Krishna conscious thinking, to faith in the process by experience, to realizing that our only real shelter is Krishna and Krishna's devotees, pure devotees especially. Is that right?
Yes. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anything else?
Yeah.
Antaryami Das?
Humble obeisances all devotees and Shiva Gurudeva, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for this class, Gurudeva. Please ask, say please, can we give Shiva Prabhupada books in some special cases free, without donations?
If you can afford it, if you have enough money to give it away for free. Special
Like,
occasion, of course, if you give a book away for free, Yamaraj won't send the Yamadutas after you. You don't have to worry.
it is not good, yes?
No, it's all right under certain circumstances. Someone has absolutely no money and they have a burning desire to read the book, and we understand they're sincere, we might give it to them. But generally speaking, people don't take very seriously things they get for free. Children, they get toys all the time, and they don't take it seriously because they didn't pay for it. They wind up breaking them. Similarly, someone gets something for free, a book, and they think, why are they giving it away for free? It's probably not very valuable. On the other hand, if we sell them the book, and instead of asking for a reasonable amount, we try to get hundreds of dollars or euros from them on some pretext, whatever we do it. That's also not very good. People should give something for the value of the book. They should understand it's something reasonable, but not unreasonable, that they'll later on be disappointed. Anything else? Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Happy Radhastami. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kumari Mataji.
Hare Krishna.